Good evening, everybody. As you can tell, Sean Benson is still not here, and I'm still not Sean Benson. He's away. He's away, still working on a TV series, and it's a good TV series. You should check it out. But welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. Really happy tonight. We have with us Kyoshi Rick Williams, and he's a 7th Dan in Jiu Jitsu. As we do, we're going to jump right in, Sensei Williamson, with a question for you. I was looking at some of your things online today, and it said that a passion of yours is empowering women by teaching self-defense seminars, and you've been doing this for quite some time. And the question I'd like to ask you is, like, what do you get from it? Why do you do it? When did you start doing it? Can you just tell us about this?
Well, I started this many years ago when I was running the club in Portage, and women put up with a lot of abuse in different forms. And it's getting worse lately when politics or athletes, and there's always articles about it. So it's nice to go out and give them a chance to feel they have some control of their lives and to find ways to deal with aggressive males. And so we teach them how to. It depends on the age. We teach them how to move, not have good balance, not fall down, and how to use a tactical flash, different things so they feel safe. But the main thing we talk about is try to be aware of your situation. And it sounds like common sense, but it's not always that way. And we show them or tell them about situations that they should avoid, and hopefully it makes a difference. There's no one right answer, but it hopefully helps along the way.
So if it's women's self-defense or self-defense in general, and maybe we'll go around the horn on this and get everybody's opinion. But we'll start with you, Sensei Williamson, because you just said something about self-awareness and talking to them. When you do your self-defense seminars, is it primarily getting their mind ready? And when you are telling them techniques to do, what are the types of techniques that you feel are the ones, and why do you choose those techniques?
Well, we try to choose techniques to give a defense against the most probable kind of attack. For example, a wrist grab. Start with something simple. Now you identify the weak point, which is the thumb. Then use leverage. You don't try to pull away. You use the element of surprise, move in, and escape. So the element of surprise is a big thing. For this. A woman gets grabbed, the attacker expects her to pull away. They move in as a surprise. So we try to teach them weak points, targets on the body to use, and how to use their body, not just the wrist.
How about the mental side of things, Sensei Williamson? What are you telling them?
You have to stay calm and try not to get surprised. Be aware. Walk down, look like you're confident. You're not timid and looking like a victim. You don't want to appear like a victim. You want to appear like you're assertive and can take care of yourself. And in the animal, we teach in the animal world, the lion looks for the weakest, the injured, the young or the old. They don't want to take on someone who looks strong. They'll avoid that competition. So that's part of the deal with women.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, Sensei, you made a few points about specifically the needs that women have for self-defense. I'm sure you've taught, like I have, self-defense to women and men. What would you say are some of the different needs of those two groups and different approaches that you might take if you were teaching one to the other?
Well, the man for competition is usually for a fight kind of thing, whereas a woman, they want to try to avoid being taken in a car, fight like heck to keep away from taken away. Whereas men, it's different thing, how to block punches and how to escape from grabs. If you're on the ground, some things you can do. More aggressive techniques, but it's the same deal mentally. You don't want to be in a fight. There's no winner in a fight. You just try not to lose and not to be there. So we talk the same thing. Be situationally aware, look around, make good choices when you decide where you're going to go and who you're going with. That's both sexes.
Sensei Suino, how about you? You've teaching lots of self-defense courses. What is it more mental? Is it more physical? What do you emphasize on both sides of that equation?
Yeah, some of each. I mean, it's a stereotype, but actually, you know, there's a stereotype for a reason. A lot of people come, you know, a lot of people come with this set of skill sets. So, you know, the men are typically a little more aggressive, a little more interested in fighting. Um, Physically, they're a lot stronger. I had my eyes open about 2 years ago. I had booked an afternoon where I taught two groups of college women consecutively, and then 2 days later, I taught two groups of high school males, and I taught essentially the same curriculum in both of those classes. And one of the things I do is this flywheel stuff where I have people swing their hands into a focus mitt and hit it really, really hard. And I trained the women, you know, and in the beginning they were timid and didn't hit very hard. By the end, they were hitting that mitt really, really hard. Those high school boys walked in and without training were hitting the mitt, you know, 5 times as hard as the women were. It's just a physical difference in their musculature. Just an astonishing difference to me, and it brought that home to me that, you know, if you're going to teach women self-defense, you got to understand how much stronger their attackers are going to be in all likelihood. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't strong women, right? There's people on all parts of the spectrum, but on average, when people walk into the dojo or into a self-defense class, you know, I try to teach women how to avoid the strength of a male attacker, how to flee, right? I use the word medic: move, evade, disrupt, injure, and then if you are in the law enforcement or martial arts profession, then you can you know, capture or control. But the main thing is to notice a threat and neutralize it and or leave as quickly as possible.
Thanks. Sense legacy. You've teaching lots of self-defense seminars. On the mental side and the physical side, what do you emphasize? Do you emphasize more of one than the other?
Well, here we don't have much time to cover everything, so I'm just going to mention some things. You need to do what counts, and that sounds pretty general right now, but you have to realize what speed is. If you have a bullet, for instance, and you throw it at somebody, it's not going to cause much damage, but you put that bullet in a gun and fire it. Speed is important. Whoever hits the other person first will win the fight. You hit them with a good punch. Hit the bag every day. You may only get one chance to get inside, or that's open so that when you hit the person, they go down, right? Leverage is another thing. It gives you physical advantage or mechanical advantage, whereas every male is about 30%, has more, well, 30% more muscle mass. Train with men against men. Like, you don't know what to do when a tiger walks in the room unless you've been there with it before. And I guess basically, and have confidence. Don't look like, when you walk down the street, don't look like a target. Look like you're ready for anything, that you're totally aware, and be aware. Other than having them, believe me, hit the bag every day. You need to have that opportunity that if you hit somebody, it's going to count. If you go to the inside and slap them in the face and it stings a bit, you're just gonna pee somebody off.
If I
So
could
I
add
don't-
something, sorry, if I could add something.
Oh, you
to
go
that,
ahead,
I
Sensei Wilson.
find that if you have a whole group of women and they're doing a choke, it's more like a massage, where you bring some guys in there to be the yukis. They don't mind choking the guys or pounding them on the real nerve. But girls are the girls that, you know, they don't want to hurt each other. So some do, but I pick some volunteers for my guys, hand-picked volunteers, and they come in and I said, girls, you don't have to hold back. So they're like Hanshi Legacy was saying, you got to be able to learn how to hit hard. So.
Well, you know, you're absolutely right about that. But what's interesting, those same two groups of college women that came to my dojo for self-defense courses, the last segment we did was groundwork, was grappling. And when we started, they were incredibly timid, right? They're shy about it. But after about 30 minutes of training, they were scrapping. I mean, they were going hard, and they got up with smiles on their faces and sweaty. And you know, that was a big breakthrough. They all loved it. So there's definitely a tiger inside of almost every woman. But you know, they spend so much time in society being told that they shouldn't be like that. It takes sometimes a little bit of encouragement to get them into the right mindset.
So the only thing I want to add on to the self-defense seminars is I do a lot of talking at the beginning, asking them questions like, why would somebody attack you? Have you contemplated why somebody would attack you? Where do you think it's likely that you would be attacked? Where are the places that you think it might happen? Just to try and get them in that mindset of, you know, you don't have to be paranoid likely when you're in church, but if you're a young lady and you're at a high school party, that might be a place where awareness needs to go up a little bit. And then when it comes to the physical techniques, I always try and just, you know, pick something from the front, something from the side, something from the back, something on the ground, something that's percussion, something that's joint lock. But the one thing that I really like to do when it comes to the percussion type techniques, and we're talking about ladies, but oftentimes you have smaller men, younger men who come in, you know, and if you see a 13-year-old boys can be like 6'2" and 200 pounds, or like 5'1" and 95 pounds. So with the smaller people, I always try and get them to hit the bag, like Sensei was saying, but at least on that day when they leave, I want them to have explored their limits of their physicality so that they know I can hit that damn bag this hard. And then I always tell them what Sensei Legacy, I learned how to teach self-defense classes from Sensei Legacy. When they leave, self-defense classes don't work. It's not going to work for you, the physical stuff. Do the mental work and go join a martial arts school. That's what I say. So on that note, welcome everybody to Punch Kick Choke Chat. As I said, I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with Sensei Legacy and Sensei Suino. Both been my instructors for, well, Sensei Suino for over 30 years and Sensei Legacy for over 35 years. It would take too long to start explaining all the things we've done together, but I'm just going to leave it at, we've done so much cool shit together, and we're going to do a lot more cool shit as we go forward. And tonight we're here with, as I said, Kyoshi Rick Williams, who's a 7th Dan in Kyoshi in Jiu Jitsu. And if you have any questions, and we really encourage questions, if you have questions, please ask the questions. And Robert's going to light it up down in the box where you can put the questions. And when we see those, if they're good questions, if they're not shite, like Sean Benson says, then we'll ask them. If they're not good, then we're not going to ask them. And we decide if they're good or not. You don't decide. We get to decide. So now, Sensei Williams, we're going to go to the first question we always ask. You've been in martial arts now for 60 years. The question is, what was it like for you growing up? Where did you grow up? What brought you to your first dojo, and what kept you there?
Okay, well, I'll start with I grew up on a farm in a small town of Belmont in southwestern Manitoba. And I had one younger brother. And in a small town, the three main sports are curling, baseball, and hockey, all of which I had no inclination to succeed at. My dad and my younger brother were baseball stars. They're in the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame. And I did not do well in baseball. And I was always being asked, how come you're not good at this? And well, that's a good question. And I was starting to make some bad decisions. So one day my dad said, you know, do you want to try judo? It wasn't a request. So, so next thing I know, he rounds up some other guys, and we drive 100 kilometers to Brandon, where the only club was. And I remember the first night very vividly, driving to Brandon. He picked 4 or 5 other younger guys older than me, and everybody was smoking those days. And I recall the windows open and holding the cigarettes out the door, and the flame going backwards all the way to Brandon. So that's my first memory of going to judo. That was the training for these guys. Have a few cigarettes before the workout. So, but we got there. It was 75 cents a lesson. It was in the old YMCA, and went down there, and I liked it. I think I finally found something I could do that I wasn't going to be compared to anybody, and I really enjoyed it. So every Wednesday, my dad gave up curling. He would drive me to Brandon. My mom and my brother would live in the farm, milking cows, pork and all that stuff. They did that night, so I could go to judo. So I owe them a lot. My dad drove with me there all through high school, and then I continued on to university. So that was how I got started. And and I enjoyed it. And it was a good timing. The instructor at the judo club had just returned from Japan for training as an instructor. And he was also a baseball player, so he was a great instructor. We had a great bunch of guys join, and we had a really super club. So I was there at the right time in the right place. And what kept me in it over the years? I don't know. It just seemed to be something I really enjoyed, and I could find success at, and met so many great people that I really respected and looked up to. And every time everything was a learning experience. And the competitions and the trophies, the medals, and the seminars, they're all great. They come and go, but the good friendships last forever. And I still keep in touch with my judo instructor. He's 90 years old out in Vancouver. We keep in touch, and lots of friends. So it's been a special part of my life. It's actually, well, it was a life changer for me. There's no doubt about that. I'm not sure what direction I would have gone if that hadn't come up. So
that is a great answer. And listen, I've already messed this up, and Sean's not here because I didn't give you a great introduction. And I'm going to do that right now. We're going to backpedal a little bit here. Let's say Williamson. And I'm going to tell everybody that we're here with Kyoshi Rick Williamson, and he's been involved in martial arts since 1964, both as a competitor and a teacher. He won the middleweight division of the Western Canadian University Judo Championships in 1971 and 1972. That was when I was born and 1 year old, in case anybody's wondering about that. He was the head instructor of the Portage Taekwondo Club from 1980 to 1984. In 1988, he was the first student in the first Jishin-Ryu Club in Western Canada, the first student in the first club in Canada, and was the first to reach
Western Cat, yeah, Western Cat.
Yeah. First to reach black belt level. He was the head instructor of the Portage Jiu Jitsu Club for 26 years. In 2017, he was promoted to 7th degree black belt by Hanshi John Therien, who we all know, founder of the World Kobudo Federation. And in 2023, in Levis, Quebec, Setsuino and I watched him get his Kyoshi title from Hanshi Therien. Kyoshi Williamson is well-versed in many martial arts and holds the following ranks: 7th degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, 2nd degree black belt in Judo, 1st degree black belt in Taijutsu, 1st degree black belt in Taekwondo, Brandon University Sports Wall Hall of Fame inductee, and founder of Shumuna Jiu-Jitsu. I've personally chatted with Sensei Williamson many times. I find him always to be a friendly, nice, approachable person who has lots of knowledge and just very easy to talk to. As I said before the call, he stays in touch after. He's a person who will contact you. He knows I like history. He sends me newsletters and has enrolled me in different things. And most recently, he actually wrote a little thing about Hanshi Legacy's book and put it in one of the newsletters. So thank you for doing that. And as I said, he's been a martial artist for over 60 years. So according to Hanshi Legacy, he's not a quitter ×2, because you have to be in martial art for 30 years to not be a quitter. So he's a not a quitter squared. Okay, so thank you so much, Kyoshi, for coming on the show with us tonight. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got into what got you there, what started you. The question I have next is, first person to join a jiu-jitsu club in the first jiu-jitsu club, jiu-jitsu person to get a black belt in that province. Tell us about that.
Well, how I got to that position, when I was in judo, I was about 22 or 23, and I got a bad elbow dislocation in a tournament. And that took several years to heal. So I couldn't do judo. So then a taekwondo school opened up in Portage. So I was there with a whole bunch of other people the first night, and I trained for 4 years, got my black belt, and ran the club for 4 years. But then the people running it in Winnipeg left, so there was nothing there to do. So I went did some karate, did Shotokan karate to the level of brown belt. But when I was doing taekwondo, I'd met a student who trained in jiu-jitsu, and I really liked that. So then one day at the high school where I was teaching, a poster went up, jiu-jitsu school starting tonight. Oh, so I'm going to check that out. So I went there. There was nobody else in the room, and here's that's my sensei, Chris Bissett, pacing back and forth other end, and so I come in, introduced myself, and he said, "You're a judo black belt?" "Yes." "You can take a break fall?" "Yes." "Okay." So he threw me in the ground, and in judo, if you get thrown on the ground, you lose. And he just kicked me in the groin and said, "This is not a sport." I was hooked. And so then the next class, about 7 or 8 young guys in their 20s joined, and on we went. And that was the first Jishin-Ryu Jiu Jitsu Club out in the Western Canada. So I stuck with it, and I got the first black belt. And then I eventually took over running the club, and ran for 27 years. And in 2012, I came down with Lyme disease for 4 years, so I had to give up everything. And then we're finally got that fixed up and moved to where we are now. And a former student in Quebec contacted me about he wanted to get going again. So I gave him he was a black belt, and I gave him a curriculum, and he trained for a year. And I went and I tested him and another guy, and Hanshi Therien came and joined us at that grading, which was quite an honor. And I drew up this new jiu-jitsu style, and I called it Shimano Jiu-Jitsu. So then when I came back home, there's several of my former black belts living around the area. So I contacted them. They want to get training again. So half a dozen of them started doing that. And then I took 2 of them up to the black belt level for a year. And then the one guy started to teach now. And then we have the one teaching in Quebec, another guy teaching in Poplar River up north here, and a brown belt down in southern Manitoba who's going to go for his black belt. So we've got things going, and somehow the 60 years flew by. I hit my head many times, but I don't remember getting a concussion.
I want to open the door to Sensei or Sensei Legacy if either of you have any questions at this point. I do have another one, but just I don't want to monopolize all the time.
I was gonna dig into the judo a little bit. Did you, well, first of all, when you were talking, I looked up Belmont, Manitoba. I mean, it's out there in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle. So
That's right.
you were definitely out there. And so you had to travel for judo. What was it like competing in tournaments? Were those must have been serious road trips for the most part?
Yes. Oh, yeah. They were. And we competed Saskatchewan, across Manitoba. In those days, south of number 1 highway, there was no martial arts. Nobody even heard of it. And I was the only one going. Then over the years, a couple other guys did it. Yes, we would take. I remember the first tournament in Regina. We took a bus road trip, and from a 14-year-old boy out in the middle of nowhere, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
I can remember sitting in Regina, looking out the hotel room at the Power Building, thinking, "Wow, it's like New York City."
Nice.
Yeah, it was good. Lots of traveling is a new part of my life, and I really enjoyed it.
How'd you find the competitions? Were you a natural competitor, or did you experience a lot of fear at first? Like, what was that evolution like for you?
My first fight, I got choked out, but after that, it went well. And I love competing. Of course, you're nervous before every match, but once you get out there and get going, that's all gone. Like you know that. And my instructor, he was really all about competition, so we really trained for that, and we were quite successful at it. And, you go to the club there, and you'd fight the line, you'd go down, but keep fighting guys till you couldn't stand anymore, and that kind of stuff. We were in great shape. We were all young people. It was really a special group we had, a special bond, and we did very well. We had team fighting, 5-man teams, and and us younger guys, we'd fight for the junior, it's under 16, and the senior. And so we would get 15, 20 fights in a day sometimes. And that's a long day.
That's a long day of judo matches. Do you remember anything about the quality of the mats? Were you on wrestling mats or puzzle mats or
tatami mats on a gym floor?
Okay.
For tournament.
Yeah. So they were okay.
And they were okay. We had if you won, they were great. If you lost, they
of
weren't
course.
so good.
Right.
But our dojo in the YMCA was great in Brandon because they had all tires laid down and plywood over top, and then the mats on top of that. It was a beautiful floor. We gave a little bit, and it prolonged our careers, I think.
For sure. Although the one thing I'll say about tires versus springs, right, is they're both
Yeah.
nice on the way down. Tires aren't as nice on the way up. They
That's
just don't give
right.
you that same sense of buoyancy that the
Yeah,
springs
that's
give
right.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hanshi, did you have something you want to follow up on?
No, I'm mainly listening. This isn't, uh, I'm not too well versed in judo or jujitsu. So
So,
I'm just listening and learning.
so questions have come in, but before Mark Altamar asked the question, which I think is good, but I have a question just circling back, Sensei Williamson.
Yes.
You, Shimuna Jiu-Jitsu, is that a name that you picked?
Yeah,
Or is
I
that
picked that. I looked, yeah, it's the name I picked. And the kanji I picked was for honor. And Shimuna basically means effective and it works. So that's why I want something simple. So that's the name I gave to it. Yeah, but it's,
I like that.
they're not all, it's not a big change. Everybody has an arm bar is an arm bar is an arm bar, but there's so many variations to get into it. And we might teach a different variation but it's the same thing. There's only so many techniques. So, yeah. So I put some different variations in, and I like to put some of my judo training in too, about balance and footwork and foot sweeps to take down. So that's something I've added to it.
Well, that goes very nicely into the question that Mark Altamar sent in. And his question is, these days, how much time do you spend training, teaching in the different martial arts you have attained black belts in?
Well, I only train in jiu-jitsu now. I don't even have a club here anymore, but the other guys, I go there and I give them some help with the curriculum or do some clinics, and I'm also doing things for them with the classical weapons like the bow staff and the bokken. They want to do some of that, so I'm more of a resource now. I trained the guys out here in Stonewall up to their black belt level, and now they're out spreading it, which is what I wanted to happen, and I'm a resource for them. Yeah, so I'm doing videos now because some guys live a long ways away. So I'm making the videos in different parts for the bokken and train them that way. So I don't know how many times, I might spend 3 or 4 hours a week on that. Yeah.
Sensei
Yeah, let me jump in. Sorry, let me jump in. I just wanted to mention the gentleman who just asked that question, Sensei Williamson, is Marcus Altamar. He's a student of mine at JMAC and a friend. And the other day he celebrated. So he's of the vintage of many of us on this call. But the other day he celebrated his 8th birthday, just over 8 years ago. After a hard day of training at JMAC, the next day he went out to play some tennis at a tennis club in our town here and fell over dead. And it just so happened that 2 things were nearby, an AED machine and somebody that knew how to use it. And they resuscitated him, sent him off to the hospital. He ended up getting 3 stents put into the vessels leading to his heart. And he since then he's in incredibly good shape now. And is enjoying the hell out of life. And every time I see him, we celebrate the fact that he died, but he's come back to life and he's still training. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, very cool.
Yep.
Congratulations to him. That's awesome.
Randy, I think you had a question you want to follow up with?
I do. I have a question because you have all been in martial arts for 50 plus years. And we're going to start with you, Sensei Williamson, but we're going to go around the horn on this. It would be really good for people who watch this show to hear, how did it change from, like, what has changed and what has stayed the same has anything stayed the same? And what are some of the major changes you've seen in jiu-jitsu or in martial arts in general from when you started 60 years ago to now?
I think they're much more visible now. You think back to the Second World War, no one knew anything about what was going on unless you heard the newsreel or heard on the news. And the same in judo. Like when I was training in judo as a kid, if they saw something in the newspaper, we had a tournament, they'd find about it. But nowadays, everything gets lots of publicity, and everybody knows what's going on. I mean, if you think about the war, there's lots of World War II shows on all the time, but there's lots of wars going on now, and there's not that many shows because everybody can see it, follow it. So there's there's a lot more visibility of the arts than there was when I was growing up. So I think that way, and there's so many more choices, so many styles. And when I come to Capital Conquest, I'm amazed by all the different styles you see there, because we don't have that population density out here. So to go there and see that's pretty awesome. But yeah, so I think more people are involved, and there's lots more choices.
How about the quality, Sensei Williamson? Have you seen any changes in the quality from when you started? Like,
yeah, well, things evolve. I know when I was thinking judo, because that's where I competed most of the time. It used to be there was only two. You didn't have these little points. You could throw a guy, you win it, you choke him out, armbar, or to a half point. And then they changed it so there's quarter points, half points, more and more like that. So they're given more opportunities for people that can't do the big throw every time, and I think that's good. And they've added a kata competition in judo, which was never there. I think that's great. Not everybody's a competitor, but they can compete in that way. So yeah, it's good quality stuff. Katas are great.
how about you, Setsuno? We'll go to you on that question next. You've been in martial arts over 50 years. Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? What's gotten better? What's gotten worse?
Yes. Well, Sensei Williamson is absolutely right. There's so much more information available, right? I mean, you can just spend the rest of your life on YouTube watching martial arts or on Wikipedia reading about the history and the people. That was not available. You had to go to the store to buy a magazine or order a book, or go to the bookstore to buy a book if there was even a martial arts book in there in the old days. There's lots more camaraderie between schools and martial arts styles. You know, we've talked about this before. I grew up in judo, which at least you could go around and compete in. But then when I started karate, I went to a school where really any mixing with other clubs was frowned upon. Now, you know, half my students train at other schools or train in multiple martial arts. There's more myth busting. I like the fact that there's bullshido.com and there's people that call out the no touch guys and the charlatans. I actually like that. You know, I sort of miss the mythology, you know, the Kung Fu Panda and the Magic Sensei and all that stuff. But at the same time, I'm glad that I think we have a much more realistic understanding of the limits. That's not to say there aren't superheroes. The people at the top of the professions, the top competitors in BJJ, the Olympic judo guys, they are amazing. They're so athletic and creative. They train so much. So they're kind of a new superhero, but it's not magic. You can understand how they got there. Although the last thing I'll say about that is I'm really frustrated with Olympic karate. I mean, I think the kata are beautiful. I love watching them, but that sport rule set in Olympic karate is a travesty. And so even though a lot of other stuff has gotten better, Olympic judo is amazing. I don't like the fighting in Olympic karate because I think the notion that you can win a gold medal by getting knocked out is a travesty, and that should never have happened. But that's my opinion, in case you were interested.
I think most people agree with your opinion on that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not some of your other opinions, but on that one in particular, people
I don't even share my awful ones.
Sense of legacy. How about you? You've been in martial arts for over 50 years. What was it like back then? What's it like now? What's different? What's better? What's worse?
I think martial arts has gotten better in Canada and the United States by way of when I first started. The senseis at that time, the majority of the senseis of that time who were trying to pioneer it into Canada and the United States didn't know complete styles. Like when I first started, I learned Kung Fu, Goju-Ryu, Shotokan, and I had to at one point make a choice, and by being able to check everything out because I was more interested, I chose Shorin. And I think it was my generation that, at least in Canada or the area I was in, started to bring things to being full styles, something that can teach you the complete lesson, like any style could, whether it was jiu-jitsu, karate, kung fu, as opposed to knowing a little bit of everything, you know. Right? You get to be more learned in one style and be able to pass on all the knowledge from all the masters instead of just from a guy who just learned something last year. Equipment has changed. If you saw my hands, you would think I should have started using equipment, because in those days, when you made a mistake, punch a guy in the knee or in the elbow or got a hit in the face or in the ribs, there were more circumstances there than just getting hit by, even though a punch in the face with the gloves on or, can be devastating as well. The competitors are better now. They train, you have more to train. They train, they weight lift like you guys doing the 75 hard. Well, I do the 75 soft. A second Dan was really something back in those days. Like Wally Slokey, probably Canada's best karate person. He was a second Dan, and our jaws used to be on our gi tops just looking at him. Whereas now, people like us who lasted through the years, that we're not quitters. It's rare, but it's not uncommon. It's not as rare to see 7th, 8th, 9th dans, because we've had the 50, 60 years to learn the art and to reach reach that level. And finally, the last thing I'm going to say is that it is not necessary to go to Japan or to go to Okinawa to learn a full style. You can go to the US because of the Marines who went over and brought the arts back. And Canada, the US for Canada is a watering hole for people who can't afford to or don't wish to go to the Orient. So that's a big, that's how much it's changed. Even though we've been there, and my main thing was to kneel at Matsumura's grave and Itosu, to go and sort of feel the history of your art.
Thank you. I want to follow up with another around the horn question on a similar vein. How about the students, Sensei Williamson? How have they changed over the last 60 years? When you opened your dojo and the first crop of students came in, what were they like compared to, say, the last crop of students or the ones you have now?
Well, the ones I have now are brown belts and black belts, so they stuck with it too. I don't know. I think students are more involved, and I think they do well. It's up to the instructor to make sure they have challenges to let them improve. And as you know, the percentage that stay with it is pretty low. And if you think back of all the people that you started with, how many are still training? It's a very small number. But I say I haven't taught a regular class for quite a few years, but at the end there, we had a good bunch of students. I think they were doing fine.
Before I turn it over to Sensei Serino and then Sensei Legacy, I just say for me, I've only been teaching 26 years. But and my memory is kind of fuzzy even for 26 years, but I think because the access to information and just how fast things happen in the world today, a lot of students that come in today, at least to my dojo, and a lot of the parents that bring them here if they're young, have expectations about achievement not related to the actual work that they're doing. Whereas 26 years ago, people came in, they were really happy to put their nose to the grindstone, do the work. And I'm not saying that the students now aren't doing it, but it takes a little more effort on the instructor's part to convince them of that proposition now, just because of the way it is. And that's just my opinion on it. Maybe it's different in different areas. But Sensei Serino, what do you think about that? Students from when you started teaching to where they are now?
you know, it's funny. I'm having trouble answering that because I have changed so much as an instructor. And in two ways, I think I'm way better at it, but I also think that my expectations have changed. Um, I can remember in my early 20s, well, mid 20s, probably teaching karate. I don't know that I don't think I would have liked myself as a teacher very much. You know, looking back on it. Um, I think I was a little bit of a bully, and I didn't think of myself that way. I just thought that's how you did it. I work harder to develop a real human connection now because I like seeing the value. I see the value in people staying in martial arts a long time. So I feel like more than ever, my first mission is to get people to love the experience, to love the training. It doesn't mean I don't want them to do hard training or that I don't want them to spar and get hit or grapple and get choked and, you know, and bruises. I do want that for them, but I want to make sure that they feel the love that that they become part of the JMAC family emotionally, that they see the value of the experience, that they see the story that is being told in their own lives. I realize that sounds all wishy-washy. I'm still going to hit them really, really hard. Um, but uh, that's way more important to me. In the old days, I think I was trying to prove something. I don't have anything to prove anymore.
Yeah, you know, Sensei, when you're saying that, Sensei Suno, I agree with you on the connection and all that. But the one thing I would say is I like them to have hard training and I like them to have rough training as soon as possible, because I think that that makes connections in the dojo. Your best friends are the ones that choked you out, the ones that foot swept you and knocked you on the ground, the ones that rough rode you. And then after class, you went out with them, like with your arm around them. To me, so that's why I like the hard training. And that's what I tell the parents and the adults who come. Trust the process. Please trust the process. I promise you, if you come, you'll get there. A lot of them want it sooner now than they did before. Before, my students just seemed to be happy to get on the floor, sweat it out, and then they were actually shocked when you said, "Hey, I want you to go into grading for your yellow belt." What? Now they're like, "Hey, on day 3, when am I going to get a yellow belt?" So, Sense Legacy, where do you take this with the students from back in the day and the students now?
Well, back in the days, the children really wanted to do it that came in. It was their idea. They would see like Bruce Lee and a lot of the other movies, and they wanted to come in and try it. And they lasted a bit longer back then, and they were willing to work a little bit more. Now the parents bring them in because they think that it's good for them. Martial arts are good for them, and it is, right? But as soon as they find that it's a little bit harder, or they didn't want to do that, they want to play baseball, they start to give up. But my advice to the parents would be, just like you make them go to school. Most kids don't like school right at first. You should make them go. If you think martial arts is going to be good for them, it's going to give them life skills, that you should make them go. Make a deal with them some type. Like I do with my kids, I told them, regardless of what they say, well, we want to do something else, that you're going to do karate until you're 16, and then after that you can quit. But they went from 7 or 8 years old up until they were 16, and some did quit, but at least they got some benefits from it, right? And you know, right nowadays, was the other thing I was going to say. Yeah, when nowadays some adults and other persons come in, and they don't expect that there's going to be any work, you know, and they don't want to work. They sort of just want to hang around for 6 years and get their whatever belt they're going to get. And I sort of disagree with that a little bit, you know. Just giving. My thing is this, again. I've said this before. If someone called me their daughter didn't like it at their school, and she was 13 years old. And she wanted me to teach her private lessons. And I said, okay, what rank is she? And there was a bit of a blank there, right? She goes, well, she's a second-degree black belt. I says, well, maybe she'd be better off going somewhere else. And she started to lean on me a little bit. And I said, let me put it to you this way. Somebody, if you were all asleep at night and somebody broke into your house and you and your husband were in your bedroom and your daughter was in her bedroom, would you send her out to see who's out there? Or would your husband go? I mean, a black belt level means, you know, that you're fairly good at your art and that you've got self-defense under control. Nobody, in my opinion only, no one under the age of 16 years old should be a black belt because they don't have that makeup. But black belt means something, right? And if they're not willing to wait and to train and turn themselves into a black belt, then they shouldn't be.
I agree.
I'm sorry if you bust some of your children's bubbles, but I'm telling them the truth, and yous are all lying to me.
And actually, getting a black belt, I think at 16 should be uncommon. That shouldn't be a common.
Very
experience.
rare.
Yeah. Setsuno, you had something?
Yeah, sure did. Hey, Kyoshi Williamson, you know, we're talking about how students may have changed and all the time, all the years that we've been in martial arts. What are some things that you have found work especially well with students? You know, what helps people really understand what you're trying to teach them? What makes good martial artists in judo or jujitsu or anything else you've taught in? You know, do you have some strategies or trends or patterns you've noticed?
I try to, explain to them why we're doing something, not just tell them to do it. Break it down and you look for openings. And I find if you give them an explanation and have good high standards, they'll do it. You just go out there and do a kickback throw. Well, you got to do a lot more than that. You got to break it down, show them how it can work, show them when you should try to use it, and some students will embrace that, and some will be thinking of something else. But that's the way it is. But that's why I found good students, if you break it down, explain it to them, and why it's going to work and when it won't work, it means more to them. So that's a technique that I use as much as I can. And of course, you praise people, not overly, when they do things well, and you correct them, not improperly, but you correct them quickly and remind them this is not the way we do it. Be consistent as a teacher.
You think there's a difference in a
You
Sorry,
learned the
Randy.
lesson on the first night, Sensei Williamson. Your instructor threw you on the ground and kicked you in the groin. You don't do that to the kids when they come in your dojo.
Well, they all got cell phones. I can't do that. It'll be recorded.
Oh, Lord. Everything's changed. That's what's changed about martial arts. Kyoshi, what do you think about, is there a different way to approach students that struggle to learn versus students that kind of are natural athletes?
Natural athletes seem to be able to do things no matter what they do. And yeah, I think you give them attention and you really got to compliment them on the small successes they have. And they can't do it like the athlete does it, but they were slow and steady, and you stick with them. And you don't make them stand out in the class, but in your mind, you're going to try to help them. Just appreciate what they can do and try to bring them along. It's just not going to happen quickly for them. Yeah, I try to really, as we said, talk to them about things rather than just all the physical part. The mental part is so important, and give them confidence that they can do it. And many will stick with it if you do that.
What do you think was one of the hardest things you taught back in, I don't care, you pick the art. Like what surprised you? You started to teach something and you saw more people struggling with it than you expected.
In Taekwondo with a jumping 360 back kick.
Yeah, I would think so.
And what are we using this for? Well, it looks good.
Yeah. It does look good.
But, yeah, but it was
except when I do it.
A difficult thing, I guess. It's how to recover from a loss. So you're in a tournament and you lost. Okay, you talk to the person. Let's talk about what happened there. Okay, And sometimes people just have a really hard time dealing. They get either shown or beat on points, and you explain to them, they can say, this didn't work this time. Try this next time. Give them an alternative. Don't just say you should have done better. So I think that helps them. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the mental side, it reminds me of when I was doing karate in college. There was a kid, really nice guy that we trained with, about the same rank as me. And he made a big mistake at a party. He was leaning against the wall or something, and then he had chased some drunk guys out, and they came back in, and since he was leaning against the wall, right, he couldn't get his feet under him quick enough, and they dropped him in a big hurry and then ran off. And he didn't get badly hurt, but his ego was wrecked. And it took him a couple of years to get back. It really it rocked his confidence. And it was just like one bad error, just a little too cocky that night. And I can just imagine, if he had gotten his ass kicked at a tournament or something, he probably would have struggled with that too.
Yeah.
Says, it is 9:23.
What does that mean? Does that mean it's time for the 10 questions?
We always do the 10 questions at 9:20.
So we're 3 minutes late.
And we are behind schedule.
I'm having anxiety.
So, Sensei Williamson, we always ask all guests the same 10 questions. We ask you to answer them as impulsively as you like, but also if there's a question that you want to go into great depth on, that is okay as well. And I will start and we'll go back and forth. So the first question is, and I'm hoping you're not going to say it's a jump spinning 360 kick. What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
Most effective move, I would say a bottom fist to the brachial plexus, followed by a kickback throw.
One more time, Sensei, I didn't get all of that.
A bottom fist to the brachial plexus. For self-defense, bottom fist to the brachial plexus, kickback throw. And that's my bread and butter, what I would go to.
Nice. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
Okay, I'm going to change a bit. Influential person would be my mother, because she encouraged me in martial arts. She milked the cows. She did that. She kept scrapbooks for my dad, my brother, organized everything, washed my gi, dyed my belt, all those things, She would be the most influential person in my life as far as sticking with it. Martial artists, I had great instructors. My judo instructor, all my instructors were great. But I think when my brother and my dad got into the Hall of Fame for baseball, and she was still alive. When I got into the Hall of Fame for judo, she wasn't around. That's a regret, because she would have, she always felt bad that they were in and I wasn't. So yeah, she would be a bigger influence in my life. So I'll speak for her.
Sounds like an amazing woman.
My mom never wanted me to do martial arts. She did everything she could to keep me out of it. And my grandmother gave me my first $100 to be able to go. And
That's so cool.
and I never thought about her as the most influential, but she definitely played a big part. But the next question for you, Sensei Williamson, is who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time and why?
Wow, you got me on that one. I guess one of the most well-known would be, as you say, the Bruce Lee era. He influenced a lot of people, got them involved, right? That everybody wanted to be like him. So that's who I'll say was probably the most influential one that I know to think of at the time.
That's who Sensei Legacy picked too.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
Watching my black belt students grow into instructors, helping them. I went to tell one guy he needs help in the groundwork. So we went all through that on the floor, and seeing his eyes, like, I get it, and he can't wait to teach it. That excites me.
Sensei Williamson, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
No more break balls.
Amen. Oh, that's hilarious. I'm just gonna pause you there. Oh, I'll give you an alternative. What are the two choices? No more break falls, or would you like to be able to take break falls painlessly and freely
Right.
for the rest of eternity?
Those clouds look a lot softer than the tatami.
Don't they? What a great answer. Do you have a favorite film or TV martial artist, whether they're a real martial artist or not?
I like Jackie Chan. I like him.
What are some of your favorite Jackie Chan movies?
The last one, seriously, I watched 3 or 4. I can't remember the name. The last one I've watched it several times. Series, Esteban. I can't remember. Anyway, you got me that one, but yes, I like Jackie Chan movies.
Nice.
Do you have a martial artist, living or dead, that you wish you could have trained with?
A regret I had in judo was that we lived an hour away, and the club ran 3 nights a week, and I could only go once. And my instructor said, if you could get here 3 times a week, we really could have taken your place. I did well, but as far as an instructor, you mean a famous person, or is anybody you can think of?
Anybody, Sensei Williamson, that you want of all time, like from Badu Dharma or back all the way to yesterday or today.
I think Hanshi Therien is an amazing instructor. I would have loved to train under him.
You might be the first person to have that answer.
Yeah, well,
Cool. No, that's great. I like new stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
he's done a lot for me. I really respect what he stands for and what he does for so many people, and he's a good friend.
Wonderful.
And I'd love to train under him.
Number 8. If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit that you've gotten from martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would that be? What benefit would you give them?
Self-confidence, belief in yourself that you can find something you can do. That's what I got when I started judo, when I couldn't do the other sports. So that would be something that I would like to give to people. Stay the course, believe it, you'll find what you can do. And I was fortunate enough to do that.
That is also the same answer that Sensei Legacy gave. Confidence.
We talked earlier.
He tipped you off. He told you these questions, didn't he?
He tipped me off. Yeah,
Damn it, Hanshi.
that phone was ringing.
We just trained hard.
So Sensei Williamson, the next 2 questions come as a pair. What do you consider to be your greatest achievement, and what is your greatest regret?
So what was the last part of it?
What is your greatest achievement? What do you consider to be your greatest achievement? And then the second part of the question is, what is your greatest regret? What do you regret the most?
Well, I think I mentioned my regret I couldn't train more often. And I think I really, I did very well, but could have done more. I think my greatest achievement was stepping somewhere that no one knew anything about. When I went to judo, no one had any clue about judo or martial arts south of the Trans-Canada Highway. And I was able to go from my environment, which was on a farm and none of this, to competing in judo, which is unheard of. So I think that's an achievement I'm proud of.
That's a great achievement. I find it mind-blowing to think about you having a flyer and walking into a room, and that's the first jiu-jitsu, like that's just the first time, and we're documenting it tonight. That's the first time that in Manitoba in the West that ever happened, right? And you're part of that living history, which is incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think that is a great achievement.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if we want, I have questions that go back to competitions. Setsuna, do you have any thread that you want to go
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, Kyoshi Williamson, I just want to hear a little bit more about the early training days. You know, what were the dojos like physically? You know, what were the sounds and smells? What were the conditions? You already talked about the tatami mats at competitions a little bit. You know, were they wearing the old yellow gis that smell like unprocessed cotton? You know, like just, you know, God, I hated those gis. I don't like them. But anyway, we're lucky to have nice white bleached gis these days. Yeah, just well, you know, paint a picture for us. What was it? What
Okay,
was it
well,
like in those dojos?
Like I say, the first dojo I went to, it was the last year of the YMCA in the city of Brandon. And you walk in there, smelled just like you're describing. You paid your 75 cents, went down the stairs, and here's the dojo, and guys wearing white gis. There's no blue gis in those days. And I can remember where we were standing. And yeah, the training was hard. Our teacher was he really drove us. And lots of hard work, training, sweat, dragging the mat, and really physical workout. And then you could go down afterwards, you could go down another flight of stairs, somewhere in the bowels of the earth, there's a swimming pool. And I don't know who would go into that, that you'd be disappearing there, but the whole place smelled, there wasn't a terrible smell, just the smell of sweat. There's people working out, and there's no ventilation, and yeah, it was pretty a good place to train. You develop character. You know, and we go to tournaments, really nice, you know, big place and newer mats and stuff. But it was that was our home, and we were proud of it. And the next year they tore it down, built a new one, but it was never the same atmosphere. But it was a great atmosphere. We had a lot of people in the club. We fought the line, we fought each other, we trained together, and as you say, we went out afterwards and socialized together, traveled on road trips, and yeah, lots of great memories. So it was a lot of fun and a lot of hard work, but it was good.
YMCA's and the YWCA's have a big part in martial arts starting off in Canada anyway. I imagine in the United States, because
Same.
never really knew if a club would go in those days. You weren't going to buy a building or rent big buildings, so everybody went to the Y. And that's where our dojo started.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting question to go around the horn on. Because you, Setsuno, have been in many dojos since youth, and I know Sensei Legacy you have as well. And with Sensei Legacy, I mean, I trained in the Ross Street Dojo in St. Thomas, which is kind of a strange room. And then I trained in the Knights of Columbus Hall in the basement, where it would get like so sweaty and the floor was so slick that you'd be like sliding around in there like an ice rink. But how about you, Sensei Legacy? When you were a student, what was it like in Harold Warden's dojo? And what was it like with Benny Allen? Where did you train with those people?
Well, the difference is that Harold Warden was a businessman. What was happening is just on the light side, Itosu had dropped the judo guy, and that, I think, karate started to pick up. And he rented a piece of the judo. It was like 1,200 square feet. And there was a mat with, I don't know, it was sawdust or what was in it. I'm not quite sure. And we rented it. And then after about a year, there were no more judo people. And I'm just telling you what happened. I'm not saying one's better than the other. And then Benny Allen was another beast. He would rather train outside. So we used to, in the east end of Toronto, we used to always train outside. You'll see us that we had sometimes our winter coats on, but we still train us outside as long as the snow wasn't deep in that. So I think that things have changed for the better, because we do have camps, and we ourselves in the summertime don't train inside the dojo. We train outside in the park, even though the dojo is just next door. But it's I think it helps to be in an open environment, in a closed environment, so that it's a different feeling when you're fighting in those places. For example, if you ever run across a farmer's field, you must have, Sensei Williamson,
Yes.
you run across the field and you're having a hard time. But when you run down the hall in your high school, it's the lockers are just going by, right? So it's really changes your vision and your
Yeah.
when you're fighting outside. So
Good
that
point.
that's what happened with us.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Suino, what kind of dojos did you train in? I know you were in the YMCA to start, but you must have had some. I mean, I've been to your judo dojo in Yokohama, which is like what everybody dreams they should be training in. That building is like that. But what other kind of places have you trained in? Or
Yeah,
just
so
those ones?
well,
Yeah.
it's eerie, the similarities between what Kyoshi Williamson said, you know, in the YMCA that I started in 1968. You'd go downstairs, you know, in the basement there were three things. There was a swimming pool, there was a weight room, and there was the dojo, right? And they all smelled a certain way, and they all kind of combined the smells. And the judo floor in those days was this white foam with a canvas stretched over it. It wasn't tatami mats. That was our local dojo.
Okay.
Smelled terrible. But it was good, you know, you fell on foam, but I've trained on carpet. I even trained for a while in a dojo where they thought it was a good idea to do throws on a wooden floor. And, you know, we were in our early 20s, so we were stupid enough to think that that was a good idea. Um, there's a few dojos in Japan that are really rough. And I mean, I don't mean rough in terms of the fighting, but just rough in terms of their look, right? Like they're just cheap, but people still train at them. And then, like you said, Randy, I've trained at the Taj Mahal, that dojo in Yokohama. Uh, uh, the judo dojo is downstairs, but it has giant windows and it's probably the size, almost this, I don't want to exaggerate, half the size of a football field, an American football field of tatami mats, and it's all sprung floors. I've seen the schematics for the floors under that. It's got truck springs under that floor. So the floor gives and you got the mats on top. It's well ventilated. You could easily have 300 people in there doing judo. I mean, you know, beautiful place. I will say this about it though. Um, judo guys have no sense of humor. They would open the windows in the winter. So when you walk down there to train, those mats are hard as ice until you get yourself really well warmed up.
Yeah, the thing you're talking about, and just so people understand this Yokohama dojo, he's only describing the dojo for judo. There's a Kyudo range, there's a Kendo dojo, there's a Karate dojo. Like this, it all has the sliding doors. It looks like really picturesque. Like picture a movie temple and people doing different martial arts in there. And that's exactly what the Yokohama dojo is like. It's beautiful.
The castle, man.
Yeah. Sensei Williamson, if it's okay, I'd like to ask you, it could be about competition, but it could be anybody, quite frankly. Over the last 60 years, who are some of the different martial artists that you've actually seen, interacted with, and that you find to be very inspiring, or maybe at a different level than their peers and the people around them?
Ours, I met, you know who Doug Rogers is?
I do not.
He won the silver medal in the 1964 Olympics in judo for Canada. And I met him. I went to the Winter Games. I met in '71. I was fighting in the Winter Games in Saskatoon, and he was there. I met him, and who have I met? Well, met you, Kyoshi Randy, and yeah, I met Hanshi Therien. I met Professor Sylvain. I've met I can think of lots of guys that are still going down there around there, but mostly people I've met are people in Ontario and around the capital of conquest, you know, people like yourselves. And we didn't meet many that when I was training in judo, we never had any guest instructors and none of that. You'd go to tournaments and the guys be referees. You very seldom, you know, got together with any other styles or art. So I never met many people until I went to Taekwondo and then Jiu-Jitsu. So as far as personalities, like I say, Doug Rogers would be the highest ranked judo person I ever met. And he trained in Japan all his life, and he won the silver medal for Canada when Japan was a powerhouse. So that's a pretty significant event. So yeah, well, that's some people.
So outside of Manitoba and Ontario, where has your training taken you? Where else have you gone?
I trained in Alberta and in Calgary, and I've trained in Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatoon, and Manitoba, Brandon, Portage, Winnipeg, and then even competed on North Dakota and Minot and Grand Forks and Kenora, Ontario, and Dryden, Ontario. Yeah, so I've been, but 3 or 4 provinces I've competed and trained in and taught seminars in. And then now, of course, now down in Ontario at Levis and Capital Conquest last time.
I want to always pause for a second to see if Sense Legacy or Sense Swino have anything that I'm not as good at this as Sean Benson, so I just want to see if there's any threads anybody wants to pick up on.
Hanshi, anything you want to pursue?
What did you do in your lifetime? You said you grew up on a farm. What kind of living is that when you were younger? Did you have certain
we had a section of land, and that's 620 acres, and we had horses because we used horses to pull the rack to fork the manure on, and then we had pigs in a different barn. We had chickens, cows. We had the works, and every morning you had to go and fork all this manure out and go fork it off, and that was our exercise. So I didn't need a weight room, and I know that helped me in my training. And in the summertime, well, there's always chores to do on a farm. You cultivate the fields, plant the crops, cut the hay, put it away. And I took up, for a summer job, I took up carpentry. And I worked for a carpenter for a while. Then I had a woodworking hobby most of my life. I had built furniture and stuff like that. So I picked up that skill. It was good. We had a good school, which is, my mom was a teacher as well. And we went to school there. And she was my teacher for 2 years. And yeah, it was a good life. We had a great little town, lots of friends in Belmont. Like a lot of small towns, it's pretty small now. There's not much left there. But when I was a kid, you had everything, car dealerships, the train came through, the steam trains came through. And yeah, it was a good life. I'm glad I was part of it.
That's interesting. A bit of history. What was your first car?
66 Ford Galaxy 500.
Ooh, that's a nice car. How could you afford
$600.
that?
Cost me $600.
Wow.
It was a great car, except in the wintertime, the accelerator cable would freeze, and I was going down the streets and have to reach down and pull off the car before I hit something. So that was a bad part of it. Yeah, it was my first car.
Yeah, I was just picturing that, when you were talking about the farm life and growing up and the martial arts, like Hanshi was, like, what was your first car? Were you ever a biker?
Motorcycle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did. I took up motorcycle riding when I was in my 50s.
You still have one?
Far.
Oh,
I worked my way up. I started with a Kawasaki 1100, then I finished with 1600 cc, big old hog. So chug around, didn't go too far, but yeah. Didn't call myself a biker. I would call myself lucky I didn't fall off.
Were you close to the city at all?
Where I lived in the farm?
Yeah.
Like I say, where I trained with the city of Brandon, we're an hour away, 60 miles, 100 kilometers. Yeah. So that was what I traveled every Wednesday.
I guess you never took a horse and a buckboard to town, or?
No,
I know you're laughing, but that was.
I've driven lots of horses. We had teams of horses in the farm. I've driven horses, harnessed in the whole bit. I've done all that. Never took a buggy to town, but.
Well, I did.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I learned Rimouski, Quebec in the early 50s, 50, 51, something like that. And only one person in I lived in the city. Only one person in our entire neighborhood had a car. Everyone else, that was my pastime. When they'd go by with the flat buckboards and horses, we would just run and jump and sit on the side of it, go to the end of the street, jump off, and then just start walking back. When somebody else came, they'd jump on. The farmers and the people in town didn't care. I was trying to relive that through you.
you guys can't remember this. Do you know what a threshing machine is?
A what?
A threshing machine. But you know what's, you used to
Yeah.
cut the crops with a binder, it ties in sheaves. You had to go out and stook all those up, put them in piles, and you throw them through it was all manual labor when I grew up. Forking sheaves, forking ear, it was a lot of work. So, but it was fun. You got together with the neighbors and you never thought of it as work.
Did you ever relate maybe any weapons to some of those tools that you used?
Of course, pitchfork's a great weapon. Yeah. I'm serious. A bow staff, a handle. That's the same things. Yeah.
With some of the Okinawan weapons, right, are you know, scythe and
Yeah.
threshing tools and stuff. Yeah.
I used to have a summer camp. I called it Summer Samurai. We have a cabin on a lake. Now I take all my club down there every summer, train them in one weapon, and I take them on into the different areas. And we had to have them do some rock climbing and bungee cord stuff like that. So yeah. So every summer I have a camp down for a 3-day weekend camp. Train on the beach. Have the Last Samurai soundtrack playing in the background. Train the beach. Yeah, we had lots of fun things.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing martial arts and having fun.
No, there's nothing. That's why we're still in it, right?
Yes.
100%. I know this is unrelated, but I'm interested now. Hanshi, what was your first bike?
My first bike was a BSA Lightning.
Ooh, classic. You know what year it was?
67.
Then it had a custom paint shop.
Oh yeah.
Never mind.
What was your
Yeah.
first car? Since Legacy, what was your first car?
53 Chevy.
Ooh.
I loved it. Cost me $15.
What?
Oh yeah, for $100 you could get a good car back in those. Really.
53 Chevy. That was my dad's car when I was growing up. 53 Chevy. Yeah.
Wish I had it now.
Right? And it was
Cost
in good shape.
thousands. Yeah. Yeah.
Randy, what was your first bike?
Legacy knows what my first car was. I had it when I went to university. I had a blue 1970 Firebird Trans Am.
Nice.
With
Yeah.
the roll.
Nice.
With what, Sensei?
With
That's
the
a
roll.
pretty nice car to go to university with. You'd be a magnet.
I had that car in high school. Yeah. By the time I got to university, it was pretty tired by the time I got there. Sensei's laughing because at one point I showed up to the dojo and that yellow nylon rope, I had the windows down and I had the door like tied on the inside to the chair to keep the door from flying open as I was turning corners.
Classic. What about your first bike, Randy?
It was a Yamaha 400 Enduro on off the road dirt bike. I think it was like, I don't know, it's probably like a 1982 or 85, like in around there. And my mom never knew I had it.
A lot of old stuff you wish you could have back.
Yeah.
How about you? You got to answer your own question.
All right. First car was a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle. I went on a tear with those because I discovered you could buy Beetles that had been rolled for $50, and then you just take all the motor parts out of them and use those. Or you could find a Beetle that was in perfect shape with a blown motor. You could buy that for $50. So you just put them together. So I ran through a bunch of those for a long time. First bike was a Honda 500 4-cylinder. Pretty good cruising bike. Went all over the place with that thing until I wiped one time and I realized I was too stupid to own a bike and I needed to stop. So I sold it and didn't ride again for a long time.
You, Sensei Williamson, do you intend on going to the Orient, or have you been there?
I've been there. Yeah. Our son was teaching in Japan for 2 years, so I went over to visit him for 2 weeks, and we did a lot of touring around. Yeah, I've been there.
Nice.
I'd like to go back. Yeah.
Have you been to the grave of the 47 Ronin or any of those?
No, I haven't been. No, I haven't been to that one. No.
No.
I've said I'd like to go back. He lived on Awaji Island, is where he taught, and I actually his teachers became friends of mine. We still converse. So yeah.
Nice.
My son still has connections with Japan. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Well, listen, senseis, sadly, time is real. Time has gone by, and we have to wind this up. So if you've watched Sensei Williamson, you know how we do this. We kind of go around the horn, talk about our time with you. After that, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll turn it over to you for your last words on how you felt about tonight, and then we'll sign off. So, Sensei Legacy, what do you want to say about your time with Sensei Williamson tonight?
I really enjoyed the time because it wasn't all me, and how great I am and everything. It was just an ordinary guy who worked hard from what I get, and hunted down the martial arts. Actually, I think probably you were chosen, being way out there, and that's what some people say is you don't join the martial arts, it somehow comes and gets you. I mean, you've been there over 60 years, and it's rare that you see that. And I find you to be very truthful and a humble person, and I really appreciate you coming in onto our show.
Thank you, Hanshi.
Hopefully, I'll see you again at Capital Conquest.
You will. You will.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sensei Suino, what do you want to say about your time?
Oh man, thanks,
Sensei
Kyoshi.
William.
Thanks, Kyoshi Williamson. Wonderful conversation. I really, as I said, it's really nostalgic to hear your tales of the early days of judo. It's so much like my experience. Just rough and tumble, sweat smelling basement dojo. It's classic. It's the way to come up. As Hanshi said, having conversation with you, you're no nonsense. You tell it like it is. You've been around a long time and seen a lot of stuff. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you this fall, if not sooner.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sensei, I really enjoyed the time as well, for many of the reasons that Sensei Legacy said. And I kind of clocked this the first time we started talking. You're not a person who really spends a lot of time talking about your own accolades, even though you have some really good ones, like things that you've done. Nobody on this call and nobody that we've had on can claim some of the things that you can claim, which very unique, like being first person in a dojo in a province to do that particular art, first person to get a black belt in that art, in that province. Like, these are very unique things. I can really, the way you describe it and the way you are, it's not surprising to me that you're from Manitoba. It's also not surprising to me that you didn't want to do curling, baseball, or hockey based on my knowledge of you. It's really interesting that when your dad brought you, that the lessons were 75 cents a lesson. And I know people look at that now and they're saying, wow, but that was probably a bit of money for your dad back in the time. It wasn't nothing. 75 says it wasn't nothing 60 years ago. I think it's kind of funny now, and you can laugh at it now, that, your first jiu-jitsu class, that your instructor asked you if you could take a break fall, slammed you on the ground, kicked you in the groin, and said, "This isn't a sport, it's self-defense." Right? Like, if he's not driving that lesson home, I don't know who was, but I liked when you said that if you won the match were great, right? That's also
that was
right. Your 10 question, break, heel, strike, most effective move. I know so many people would agree with that, and you're the only one who said it so far, but I agree. I like that you said that your mom was the most influential. I mean, everybody on this call, we're all like, the toughest people are all mama's boys in the end. We're all like I'm with you on that. Like I said, you said Bruce Lee, same as Sensei Legacy. Things you want to see your students become teachers, spoken like a teacher who wants to see things move on. What do you want God to say? No more break falls. You didn't say and kicks in the nuts after. So greatest benefit, confidence, but you also said stay the course, right? You develop that confidence by staying the course. The regret, it's such an, again, like such an honest regret. I wish I had trained more often. It's just such an honest answer. I wish I had trained more often. And then, you know, your greatest achievement, I do think it's something I'm going to think about doing martial arts when nobody else even knew what it was and seeking it out and finding it and then staying on that path for 60 years. I think, Sensei Williamson, that's an incredible achievement. I really look up to you for that. I hope I can live up to something like that. I'm going to try my damnedest, and thank you so much for coming on tonight. And before we turn it over to you, we just always like to say thanks to the people that help us run this, because we just come on and chat and make friends. But we really want to say thanks to Robert Chlumsky, Andre Sedshev, Alden Adair, Sydney Dauphin, Justin Shea, Mike Russell, Josh Kitchens, Daniel Holland, Jesse Vito, Christiana Landolt. Sensei Suino, you had one other name who's been helping us with a lot of.
Yeah, I want to make sure we mention Emily Ruth Driscoll, who does a lot of our support on social media.
Awesome. So, and then if you're following us on PKCC, go to our website. Please go on YouTube, hit some likes, post some comments, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, all of those things. Next week, we have a host chat. So you'll get to listen to the four of us chatting about various things like cars and motorcycles and martial arts. But Sensei Williamson, the last word goes to you. What do you want to take us out on? How did you enjoy the time tonight?
Well, I want to thank Sensei Sunio, Hanshi Legacy, and yourself, Kyoshi. Randy, I really enjoyed myself. It was a really honor to be on this show, and I learned something every time I ran into another martial artist. I try to learn something. I learned about what great people you are, and you're giving people a chance to express their views, which is helping people that watch these shows. And we're spreading the word in different ways than being in the dojo and kicking and throwing, spreading this way. I just think that we've covered a lot of great topics that are near to my heart tonight, and I enjoyed talking about them. And yeah, I look back at my early years with fondness, and I had a lot of great friends. I guess my message would be, we all got to this position because of sacrifices by others. And that's not just the people that you were in the dojo with. I mean, look at mine. I got looked down the road. My parents, my brother, everybody I met that drove me, everybody we fought against, trained with, taught us, we taught. Everybody helps us. And we're here because a lot of people made sacrifices. So my message would be, let's try to remember that a lot of people helped us get where we are. It's time for us to pass forward, help others, and share what we've learned. That's
a great message.
100%.
Great message. Thanks everybody for joining the show tonight.
Thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Hanshi.